This is football. I am Kevin Clark. What a coincidence, guys. What a coincidence. At the NFL, its officials, all 32 teams rig the games for the best players and coaches. Haven't figured that one out yet. It seems to be. Remember, they said the Patriots, those games are rigged too. Cowboys games are rigged for that. I mean, I just don't understand why the best players and coaches need the help, but hands are tied. They've decided to rig the games. No, I'm going to get to the fourth down thing in a second, the quarterback sneak thing. But if you're talking about the refs after this game, just spam folder of life for me. Just not really going to do it. I'm going to engage with some of those points a little bit later. I'm not going to lead with it. But if that's your big takeaway from this game, I'm just not really gonna thumb through those takes. So I want to start here. Why don't people like Patrick Mahomes? What is the unlikability? I literally can't clock it. I don't have a vested interest in anything. I know this sounds like the most stupid cliche sports writer thing in the world, but I root for the story. I root for football. I root for great football. What we just saw was an amazing football game. And if you have found yourself hating the Chiefs or hating Mahomes more than you love football, then I think you're a little bit lost. Now, if you're like a Raiders fan and you love the Raiders more than you love football, that's fine. I've certainly had those takes with my own teams, but I don't understand why Mahomes rises to this level other than to say that, and listen, the Patriots thing was different. If you had some weird football, not weird, weird is the wrong word. If you had some moral objection to Spygate or Deflategate, I mean, there were some people, remember Mark Brunell cried? He cried. God bless Mark Brunell, but he cried on TV over Deflategate. That was a little bit much. But I could understand, okay, Spygate or, Belichick seems gruff with the media, whatever. There were reasons to pick up dislike of the Patriots, and maybe we'll get there with the Chiefs. I just haven't seen it. But I don't understand what Mahomes does to make people so upset. He's the best player in the world. And he serves the purpose. He and Andy Reid serve the same purpose as the Patriots, which is to show you that you are not the team that you thought you were. And I understand that sucks, but that's what they're going to be for the next 10 years. So just get comfortable with that fact. And they're going to show you that your difference makers aren't really making a difference. And that the great player you think you have, he's finally going to be the one to topple. No. There are no princes who are promised. There's just Mahomes. And I think those types of teams, whether that's the Chiefs, whether that's the Cowboys in the 90s, whether that's the Niners of the 80s, those teams teach you that life isn't fair. So I understand the shock to the system that exists. But the reaction to Mahomes over the past, I'd say, year. And now everything you can say about why you don't like Mahomes, you can say about any star quarterback. Oh, he looks for the calls. Everybody looks for the calls. Josh Allen looks for the calls. I didn't like that flop last week, but then I saw a whole lot of current NFL stars flopping on supercuts and stuff, including, Josh Allen's gone down easy before. I'm not saying he does it a lot. I'm saying he's done it before, as has Patrick Mahomes, as has everybody. Everybody has done it or looked to the ref and said, what the hell? That's the default now. You know why? Because the entire league is predicated upon protecting the quarterback. So the quarterback's going to look at the refs. Find me a quarterback who doesn't look at the refs after a hard hit. Just find me one. Find me a supercut. You can do it now. You got, what's it called? NFL Plus or whatever? NFL Pro? You can supercut. Just find me the quarterback who gets hit and has never looked at the refs and said, give me a flag. Doesn't exist. Does not exist. That is the default for NFL quarterbacks. What are you looking for? Johnny Unitas? Just put your head down and run the next play? We live in an era where I think there's some self-absorption where we think that we're the only... There's a lack of history, and we think that there's in sports and football, and we think there's a lot. Everything we've seen now is new, and I got to tell you, Mahomes is just like the superstars of any other era. That's the one thing I've learned. When you delve into football history, you look at Vince Lombardi, not the cartoon character you think. Not the cartoon character you think. Every single athlete is wired. Every single coach, every single athlete is wired very similarly. And I don't think Mahomes is very different than anybody. And the unlikability thing to me just doesn't track. I don't mean to start off with a rant on this because we have some amazing games, but I was shocked at people saying, oh, we have Chiefs fatigue. Okay, well, there's a really good solution to that, which is someone builds a team that's better. They haven't done it. Having said that, let's go through the stats. The Chiefs have now won 17 straight one-possession games. That, to me, is a possibility of why this is so frustrating. Because they almost get got all the time. The last time they lost a one-possession game, Christmas 2023 against the Raiders. That's another part of the Chiefs dynasty, is that they don't take those kind of games seriously and it doesn't matter. Whereas if you're rooting for a more mediocre team, you can't lose to the Chiefs on Christmas and still rebound and win the Super Bowl. 17 straight one-possession games. I believe they've won 13 one-possession games just this year, counting the playoffs and the regular season. And the Bills, on the other hand, have won 11 straight games for 5 straight seasons. Excuse me, 11 games, not 11 straight games. 11 games in 5 straight seasons. So the first team, this is via the Associated Press, the first team to do that without making a Super Bowl in any of those seasons. There were 2 teams that missed in 4 straight seasons with 11 wins. Okay, that was the 49ers, 1995 through 98. Eagles 2000 to 2003. 49ers made it obviously on the front end of that. The Eagles made it on the back end. And by the way, they were coached by Andy Reid. Sometimes people change. But that probably is the most frustrating thing if you're a Bills fan right now, is it seems so close. My grandfather was, I didn't meet him unfortunately, but he was a newspaper writer, and I remember my mom once told me that you have to that he like tried out to be a sitcom writer in the 50s and didn't stick, and he never did it for I don't know, more than a couple weeks. But they said the only rule of sitcom writing is you spend 18 minutes getting the main character into hot water, and then you get to spend the last 5 minutes getting them out. That's it. That's it, over and over and over again. And that's the story. It's the only story, the ultimate story. And that's Mahomes and the Chiefs. It's just like everything looks like the end. Everything, the hero, someone's tied to the railroad tracks. Oops, nope, they got out of it. That's what's so frustrating, I think. And they just send, it's like James Bond. We're just sending them villains, and they're just getting out of it. We're how are we going to get out of this one? I don't know. We're gonna send a corner blitz and we're gonna get out of it. That's what we're gonna do. But they're supernaturally good at winning. This is also via the Associated Press. So this is a stat after the 29-22, the drive, the one that came after the quarterback sneak. Patrick Mahomes went down 1 score in the playoffs in the 4th quarter or overtime. Remember the overtimes. 40 for 56 passing, 552 yards, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 132 rating, 1 touchdown run. The Chiefs have scored on 13 of 14 drives in those situations. Didn't end up that. There will be you can tack on the last drive of the game, which did not end up in a score there. So you can tack that on. So it'd be 13 of 15, although that obviously didn't matter. They were trying to seal the game. And that shows me that they are, alongside the Patriots, is the best situational football team of all time. Andy Reid wasn't always that way, which just as I'm sure Bill Belichick grew as a coach, but we saw Andy Reid grow in front of our eyes, and Patrick Mahomes solved some of Andy Reid's problems. Andy Reid solved some of Patrick Mahomes' problems. He gave them easy answers to the test. He gave them the best plays, maybe the best playbook in the world. Gave him eventually a better defense, far better than he had at Texas Tech, which is some of the reasons he struggled as a prospect. But struggled as a prospect, I'm putting that in air quotes, but that was some of the reason, if you talk to scouts, why he was turning the ball over so much in college and far more than he did in the NFL, is he felt like he had to put the team on his back. Doesn't have to do that here. You have Chris Jones. You have Steve Spagnuolo. You have Justin Reed and George Karlaftis in Josh Allen's face. And I saw some people, including our buddy Ben Solak, say, why on the most important play of the game did Josh Allen not see Khalil Shakir? Well, we're looking at dots, guys. We're looking at dots 5 minutes after the play. You know what he's looking at? Justin Reed and George Karlaftis. They're right in his face. That ain't easy. Dalton Kincaid should have caught that pass. But the stat here that's important is that via next gen stats, Allen completed 5 of 14 passes for 66 yards when under pressure. He was under pressure nearly half of his drop back packs, 46%. Most he faced all season. That adds up. That adds up in the biggest spot. Even so, like some of those throws were on target. By the way, 17 of 20 for 171 yards when kept clean. But Kincaid should have caught that pass. I feel terrible for Bills fans. I really do. But the Chiefs have a bunch of players who are legitimate difference makers. And by the way, we could have done this with Jordan Phillips if that score had hold, right? But like Chris Jones, Nate Tice put this out there. First half was blocked 1-on-1 11 times, had 7 quarterback pressures. Like that's why people say he's the Jenga piece. You have to have Chris Jones as part of the defense, or else the entire dynasty starts to fall by the wayside because the games aren't as close, frankly, right? Like he's the Jenga piece. Mahomes is obviously number one, but if there's anybody outside of that, it would be Chris Jones. That's 1 and 2, and then everybody else. Put Kelsey in there, obviously, in the mix. A bunch of guys, a bunch of the offensive linemen, obviously, but Chris Jones let Steve Spagnuolo be Steve Spagnuolo, and Steve Spagnuolo lets Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes, which means keep the games close, and then it's winning time. And then it is winning time. I want to talk about the quarterback sneak real quick. There were a bunch of unforced errors in this game by both teams. And I think that, like they say, a great negotiation is where both teams are feeling, or excuse me, both parties are feeling the heat, feeling the pain. They don't like it. A great game was like that too, where both teams just feel like death and they're kicking themselves over X and Y and Z. I mean, the Bills let Juju Smith-Schuster break tackles all night. We're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster here, guys. He can't work. There are 31 other teams where Juju Smith-Schuster is not going to help you. And Patrick Mahomes says, stick with me, buddy. We're going to the Super Bowl, and you're going to break some tackles. We can't be doing that if we're Buffalo. Come on, guys. Live a little. The quarterback sneaks. So this is what I want to get to. Next Gen Stats says that this was the first time on record, so that's since 2016 when Next Gen Stats started to track everything, that 3 quarterback sneaks have been stopped at the goal line. All the Josh Allen sneaks. 3 of them were stopped. Hasn't happened before on record. And even if you want to say he got it, well, that's still 2, and that's frankly too many. You shouldn't be getting stopped in big spots like that. You're Josh Allen. But what happened? Well, the broadcast, Romo and Nance knew exactly what happened, which is that they knew Josh Allen runs the sneak on the left guard, behind the left guard. The broadcast did this in the first quarter, I believe. They said he runs it behind left guard. They knew that all week. And Joe Brady kept running the same play. Now, it worked sometimes because a couple things. Number one, it's Josh Allen. He's huge. He's able to do that. He also did the thing where he went over the top as if it was the goal line, almost lost the ball. By the way, 6 instances where the ball hit the ground in this game, the Bills got every single one of them. So that's important. But calling a did he not have it type of sneak that could be stopped over and over and over again, to me was not sound, because you're basically leaving it in the official's hands. And as we've talked about, as you know, with the games are rigged, right? No. And I just, for me, I think that I'm not going to look back at that sneak and say that was any flashpoint or whatever. I think he may have gotten it, may not have gotten it. It's really hard to overturn calls. Like I understand the frustration of it, but it was really close and it can go either way. That's what a toss up type of call is. And I'm having a hard time being worked up over it. I really am having a hard time. A lot of chances for the Bills tonight, a lot. And to say it all hinged on the referees overturning a 50-50 goal line, or not goal line, 4th and inches sneak that they ran a bunch of times that the Chiefs had already figured out. To me, that I'm not going to freak out about that. Now, what I am going to freak out about is I just feel bad for Bills fans. I truly feel bad for Bills fans. And Bills fans, I say this every time somebody loses a playoff game, Bills fans not listening to this. They cannot process this. I feel so bad for them. I'm going to have to tweet it or something in order to reach them. I have to do it about a month from now because they're not going to log on. Because 5-0 Mahomes against Allen. The problem is they've been chasing this dream for a long time. And the year they drafted Rousseau and Epinesa, I remember Brandon Beane saying, what we were thinking about is how do we beat the Chiefs? What were we lacking? And the answer was pass rush at that point. And I kind of feel like, it's like the Sisyphus thing, rolling the rock up the mountain. And I think that if you're the Bills now, and the Ravens are here too, nothing matters next year. Nothing matters in camp. Nothing matters in September, October, November, December. None of it matters. The first round of the playoffs, unless they're playing the Chiefs or the Ravens, does not matter. Nothing matters. And I kind of feel like you start to lose your football joy a little bit when you can't find happiness in the little things. And sometimes I worry that you end up not seeing the forest through the trees and you say, hey, how do we beat the Chiefs? And then all of a sudden the Bengals gain ground on you because you made a roster decision where you weren't thinking about beating all 31 teams. You were thinking about beating one team. That's possible. But I do think they'll get back here. I think in general, what I think about with this Bills team is that they were able to find some of those small victories, and the fact that they were supposed to take a step back this year because of the salary cap stuff, new guys on the defense, new guys on the offensive line. They were able to kind of have hey, everybody was doubting us kind of thing. That's not going to happen next year. The expectations are going to be high. They're going to be able to bring back a lot of these guys. They're going to have a draft where they're able to augment some of this stuff. I don't know what it is. I don't know where roster wise we can do this later in the week. We can look roster wise at what they need, but the expectations are going to be really high next year. They're not going to get whatever you want to call it, the gap year that people were saying that Allen was going to get this year. No, the expectations are going to be really high. We're going to talk about the Chiefs for the next 2 weeks. Talking a lot about the Chiefs, and so I just want to give a football eulogy to the Bills. A great team, exceeded expectations. They're not far off. We saw that. And it sucks because it's almost like what I said about the Ravens last week. It sucks because there's no prescription for it other than play better on 3 or 4 plays a game. And I don't know what you just keep building your roster. You do the things that you were already going to do. That's what stinks. You don't get to learn a lesson from it. There's no boxing saying you either win or learn, right? And I'm not sure you learned anything if you're the Bills. And that, to me, is probably the most frustrating part. You didn't learn anything. You knew that you needed to play huge in big moments, and you didn't. And they're going to be thinking about that for, I was going to say 7 months, but it's longer than that. It's 12 months. It's 12 months, and whatever the Sunday is, last Sunday in January next year is, that's the only time this team will be judged. I want to talk about the Eagles. Obviously, they made the Super Bowl. I'm going to get negative here for a second, but only I'm going somewhere with this, okay? I understand the impulse to say the Commanders are going to be back better than ever next year, right? Young quarterback, great roster, great sort of core, I guess you could say. Terry McLaurin, couple of these guys who I think really established themselves this year. Bunch of great veterans. We don't know who's going to be back, who's not, but obviously Bobby Wagner's really good. Zach Ertz was just what Jaden Daniels needed. Dan Quinn, Cliff Kingsbury, not interviewing for all of these jobs. We'll see what happens with New Orleans. I understand the impulse to say, oh, this is the worst they're ever going to be. And then I think I may have said it somewhere, like on the radio or something. And again, I agree. Like they're going to go out and they're going to fix this roster. But that default, to me, sometimes overlooks that other teams are just as in the mix. Now, in that division, the Cowboys and the Giants are not close, so no one's gaining on them. But to me, the biggest issue is we saw the gap with the Eagles today, and it was massive. And I think the existential question you're asking yourself is not when is when are the Commanders going to be back, which I think is unanswerable because you just have no idea. What do the Lions look like? Do the Packers take a step forward? What happens with JJ McCarthy and the Vikings? Are the Niners going to reload this year? Are Sean McVay and that Rams team and that young defense going to take a step forward? This was a weak NFC. And the freaking Falcons, who we keep waiting around for to look good, is next year the year. This was a weak NFC. So they're going to have to do a lot of reloading. But to me, I'm not going to cough here because I'm clutch. I just want you to know that. But I think you see the gap here with the Eagles. I'm not sure, and I know this is overstating it, but they made the Super Bowl again. It's really hard with the way their roster is built to compete with them in a year that they're healthy, because the Niners were able to do it, but the Niners had an older roster, a more expensive roster. There's only a handful of teams that even have the capability to compete with this Eagles roster. And the Commanders are going to be one. The Rams are going to be one. But then I look around and I see some of these other teams say, if these guys are healthy, they still aren't as talented as this Eagles team. Jalen Carter is unbelievable, still on a rookie deal. Quinion Mitchell lined up against Terry McLaurin on 36 of his 48 routes. This is via Next Gen Stats. Was in press coverage on half. Mitchell allowed one reception for 7 yards. Had a fourth quarter interception. That's as a rookie, that's unbelievable. Cooper DeJean looked awesome. Saquon Barkley, who everybody in the league knew was awesome, they were the only team that went out and said, you know what, we'll give him $37 million over 3 years. In a league where clowns get that. In a league where clown wide receiver 3 makes 3 years, $37 million. We said, what if we got the top of the line guy who runs away from everybody, runs hard, can help us in short yardage, has breakaway speed? What if we got that guy for in today's cap world, basically a flyer? The only team that did that. Howie Roseman knows how to build a roster, and he maximizes it every single year. That's why Nick Sirianni's under so much pressure all the time, is because Lurie and Roseman give them that kind of roster. I saw this week, and the reason I picked the Eagles big, picked it by 2 touchdowns, and they were going to hang 50. I think Will Shipley was going to have some breakaway runs. I didn't see that coming. I did know that Saquon Barkley led the NFL in yards before contact, and that the Commanders were worse than the NFL at yards before contact. They got pushed off the ball. That's one thing they're going to have to fix next year is the line. But the Eagles don't have much to fix. Cam Jurgens was banged up. The line was still good. Every problem I had with the Eagles seemed to be solved today. Jalen Hurts held onto the ball too long against the Rams, that young athletic defense. He was just getting the ball in the hands of playmakers today. He was executing. He was handing off to Saquon Barkley. There was a culture run. I was talking to Orlando Franklin actually earlier today. We were talking about that first 60-yard touchdown from Saquon, where Jordan Mailata is out just mauling guys. A.J. Brown's downfield blocking. That's, to me, a culture run. You get that because you signed Saquon Barkley, but you also get that because you taught and assembled a team that is just going to maul guys in the run game. Not every team is like that. They're physical. They have good draft after good draft. They're only going to get better. I promise you something good's going to happen next draft. Guys are just launching themselves all over the place. When you have a bunch of talent rowing in the right direction, I got to give Sirianni credit for this, because that part is coaching. That part is a mentality. I think some of it comes from the locker room, but clearly a lot of it comes from Vic Fangio, Nick Sirianni, Kellen Moore. That staff is really good. And I wanted Nick Sirianni out before this year because I thought a bunch of guys could do this. I mean, you know what? Maybe I'm right. But I'll use my argument, like the Tua argument for me, which I use. And people say, oh, Tua's not worth $40 million. Well, you're really just paying to not find out what's behind door number 2, which is Skylar Thompson. If you're the Eagles right now, what would have been better? And again, I'm arguing with myself here. Would Bill Belichick have been better? I don't know. Who would Bill Belichick have hired as OC? Josh McDaniels? Joe Judge? I don't know. What I do know is that you keep Nick Sirianni because he can do that. He can build an offense that knows how to maul guys, that presses all the right buttons. I don't know who hired Vic Fangio, but whoever did it crushed it. This is a great team. This is a great team. And if I was asked a question on TV the other day, blind resumes, who's better, the Bills or the Chiefs? And I said, well, the Bills are, but we don't play the game on blind resumes. That's why I picked the Chiefs to win. And blind rosters, if I'm just looking at the talent here, the Eagles are a better team than the Chiefs. 1 through 46 active players, right? But I'm going to pick the Chiefs only because of what I already said. It's going to be close because of that defense, and then Mahomes is going to know how to win. Do I think Saquon being able to run out the game if they're up late is going to matter? Yeah, probably. That might matter, but I cannot pick against the Chiefs. I cannot. I will be in New Orleans. We'll be doing shows from there all week. I wish some great guests lined up. You're going to like it. My early pick is the Chiefs are going to win 24-20. That's my pick. All right. Jason McCourty is going to join us on Monday. We'll get that episode up to you up early. Thanks, Flynn. Thanks, Miles. This has been football. See you tomorrow.